And welcome to the Mediocre Photography Show. My name's Ben.
And my name's Jack.
And today we're going to be looking at the two worst cameras ever made. And I think we've taken slightly different approaches to this, haven't we, Jack?
Yeah, I think so. I've gone for more of a personal touch, whereas you've done some more research into it.
Yeah, no change to the normal, I guess, then. So, the camera that I have chosen to be the worst camera ever made is the Konica AI Borg. This camera was often the common denominator in a lot of worst film cameras ever made lists. And after doing a little bit more research into it, I can kind of see why. I was further intrigued by the Konica AI Borg when I came across its, let's say, unique design. After looking at some of the reviews, I knew that this was going to be the perfect camera for this video, with its user interface being described as a hateful pile of crap and one of the worst things to have ever been used. I knew I just had to get my hands on one of these. I mean, I've shot Olympus. Surely the interface can't be as bad as that. Surely.
This is the Faburo Kids Camera, Digital Children's Camera, Child Camera, 12 meg, 32 gig, memory card, toddler video recorder, birthday gift for the children, and quite possibly the worst camera ever made. I chose this camera due to the relationship I had with a VTech kiddie zoom back in the day, which is obviously where I get my passion for photography from.
So let's talk about the Konica AI Borg. After an absolutely logistical nightmare of trying to get the camera to turn up on time, it didn't work. The camera powered on, and then all of a sudden the trouble light started flashing, and then it would just power straight off again. I tried to take the system apart, but the mechanisms were too complicated for me to really delve quite deep, and so I had to accept the fact that I have a broken camera. However, the camera did still power on, and so I did manage to still get a bit of a feel for how the camera may have been like to use. First of all, let's start off with a positive. During my research, a lot of people claimed for this to be the most ugly camera ever made. And I have to say, I disagree. It is certainly not the most beautiful. But I really admire the retro-futuristic design that this camera implements. 10-year-old me would have absolutely loved playing with this thing like it was a phaser from Star Trek. Even the screen on top does look a little bit spaceshipy. In fact, if you delve deep enough into the culty hell that is camera collection, you'll find that this camera is often referred to as the Darth Vader camera.
No, I am your father. No, it can't be true. No.
But how is it to use as a camera? In short, it is one of the most weird, awkward things that I have ever held in my entire life, and I've been holding up this podcast for the last 6 months. It handles not too dissimilarly to a combat camera, but curiously the shutter button is located halfway down the camera's body, meaning that you need to use some really elaborate hand puppet style contortionism to even take a photo. This is not to mention the interface of the buttons on the back of the camera. People in 1991 must have had teeny tiny little needle fingers because the only way that I could actually press the buttons was by using a biro. I did notice that the top buttons were a lot easier to press, but that was only when the back door of the camera was open and your film would be exposed to the world. So, provided that you have hands like Mr. Salad Fingers and you can press all of the tiny little buttons that are placed in weird and wonderful locations, how is the camera's menu to navigate? The short answer is f***ing awful. The symbols on the back look like they belong on the dashboard of a car, not to mention the back of a camera, and apart from the flash, we have the secondary on and off switch, windscreen wipers, indicators, a binary converter, and this button tells the subject of the photo they're about to go down. And, although very cool looking, the USS Enterprise style screen doesn't convey information in the best way.
So back to the Faburo Kids Camera, Children's Digital Camera, Child Camera, 12 meg, 32 gig, memory card, toddler video recorder, birthday gift for children. For £20 I got a fully functioning camera, which is more than can be said for Ben, a charger, a carry case, a lanyard, a memory card, and tons of stickers. For all you tech lovers out there, this literal piece of has a 12 megapixel camera, it shoots video at 1080p, and has a 2-inch HD screen, which you soon find out to be a lie. I chose this particular kid's camera because it had some of the worst reviews. Allow me to share a few of my favourites.
Chloe gave it 1 star and says, "It's so small, this is not worth $19.99 at all. I haven't used it yet, as it's for my little boy's birthday on Sunday." Jacqueline B gave it 3 stars and says, "It's a lovely little camera for my 4-year-old. Only downfall is that I've had to do the review before getting the SD card to go with it. I'm unable to comment on picture quality until I received the SD card."
So overall, the reviews didn't give me much hope for the camera, which was perfect. I received the camera, which was a good start, and I opened it with the same lack of enthusiasm as when Ben tells me it's time to record a YouTube video. When I opened the box, I found it a lot smaller than I was expecting.
That's what she said!
Although on a positive note, it arrived like the listing stated. When you turn it on, you get horrible noise, and then you're filled with, I don't know, I'd say about £20 worth of instant regret.
Back to the Konica. Although I didn't get the chance to explore the feature set myself, this camera did come with some really interesting quirks alongside the standard gubbins that you would get from a camera of this era. This camera has one of the weirdest multiple exposure modes I have ever seen. It allows you to take 39 exposures on one frame. Not weird in itself, however, the camera does allow you to have each one of those exposures 100 hours long, and each one of the intervals 100 hours long as well. That means that if you are going to go whole hog on this, it would take you 300 days to shoot one roll of film. Interestingly, that's the same amount of time as I spent crying when this camera arrived broken. Another bugbear of this camera is that the date can only be set as late as the 31st of December 2019. And personally, I don't know what's worse. The fact that the engineers at Konica didn't believe that people would be talking about this camera 30 years after it hit the shelves, or the fact that I'm still talking about this camera 30 years after it hit the shelves. However, back to the positives, some of the example photos that I have seen do show that this camera's got a bloody good little lens on it for what it's worth. So because my camera didn't work, unfortunately I can't show you any photos that I've taken myself. However, big shout out to Hamish over at 35mm who has given me the permission to use some of the photos from his blog on this show. Would also like to thank Hamish for posting an absolutely fantastic and thorough review of the camera himself, as it did give me a lot of inspiration both to buy the camera as well as information that I may have otherwise missed when my camera arrived broken. So definitely go and check them out, and I'll make sure to link them in the video description.
I decided to test the Faburo Kids camera, children's digital camera, child camera, 12 meg, 32GB memory card, toddler video recorder, birthday gift for children after a long 12-hour night shift. This was to save myself from the embarrassment of being seen with it round my neck. Overall, the camera is easy to use, although being a kids camera the size of a GoPro, you wouldn't expect anything less. When you do take a photo and get over the sound of a suicidal rubber duck, the 2-inch HD screen presents you with your image. Now, the quality of the images are not so good, but what do you expect from an overpriced Happy Meal toy? But the video and audio are not much better. In fact, they're so much worse. It's so bad that I had to install an AVI to everything else converter. I did some research on AVI and I found out that the format is nearly 30 years old and most commonly used in CCTV. Which when I think about it is fair enough, since the camera came from China. But if I were to glorify shit, these photos do have an abstract quality about them, which is emphasised by their visual aesthetic. The full narrative is quite unknown, but I think that adds to the mystery. The mystery of why someone would spend £20 on this. The camera itself is faulty as f***. Regularly, the image will stay on the screen, and it's not until you take the SD card out in which the camera actually turns off.
So when I was researching the AI Borg, I couldn't shake a thought. How was the camera received when it first came out? So I tracked down the October 1991 edition of the Photo Conversations magazine, and in there was a tutorial for boudoir photography. But more interestingly, a review of the Konica AI Borg. I can only assume that Roger Payne was paid off by Konica, as his review was largely positive, saying that he liked the useful functions, large display and price. By the way, the price in today's money is about £550. He disliked the poor viewfinder quality, handling and small function buttons, so he got something right with the review. However, the camera was also rated 5 stars for spec, 4 stars for performance and 5 stars for value for money. So, closing thoughts on this camera. Well, until a week ago, I hadn't even heard of the thing, and by God, I wish I could turn back the clocks. However, every camera that I have encountered since then has been broken, so I think that this is a very strong contender for the worst camera that has ever been made.
So what does the Faburo Kids camera, children's digital camera, child camera, screw it, you know what it is, have going for it? Well, it certainly has a meme factor, and if you don't care about quality or dignity or the camera's deafening screeches, then it's perfect for you. I wanted the camera to be good so that I can relive my former glory years, but it wasn't. This camera dropped even below my expectations, and that's the reason I won't be buying another one. But there's a glimmer of hope for this little runt of a camera. I think if you do have kids, this could be the camera to get them passionate about photography. I wouldn't recommend it being getting your kids passionate about photography, or getting this camera for that matter. Although I gave this camera to my younger sister and she was over the moon, bearing in mind she only took 3 photos, all better than mine. So after all's said and done, the trials and tribulations, this camera will always have a special place in my heart.
So, whose camera do you think was worse? My camera, which didn't work at all, or Jack's camera, which hardly worked at all? Let us know down in the comments below. Jack, if people liked your photos and wanted to see more like them, where can they find them?
That'll be at Jack Henderson Photo. And Ben, if they liked your non-existent photos, where can they find some of your photos?
You can find some of my photos, which certainly do exist, at Ben Bullman Photo. And if you want to see some bloopers, and trust me, the blooper reel for this episode is going to be hilarious, behind the scenes footage and other exclusive content, where can they find that?
That'll be at the Mediocre Photo.
You know the drill. If you like it, subscribe. If you really like it, then like it. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Cheers.